So what I wanted to talk to you about is basically the transition that you made, right? So you went from working in support to now working as an apprenticeship electrician. Maybe just can you tell me a little bit about that? What was it like doing that transition? What brought it about?
Yeah, and it's actually really weird timing for me now because I was just thinking of this. Not weird timing, but I was just thinking about this the other day because it was about a year ago this week that I was at an on-site in San Francisco with my old company. I I came back from that really demotivated, energized. I had nothing really left to give. And this is following, 3 or 4 years of being in the industry and really not seeing a future or a career out of it. I think largely it caused me a huge amount of stress. I think that environment, that tech sphere, caused me a huge amount of stress. And I really wasn't happy with it. Like, it wasn't what I was doing was necessarily good, bad, or indifferent. It was that it just wasn't motivating me and I wasn't getting anything out of it. I think for years, like all I wanted to do was work with my hands. Like I've obviously got the workshop. I build stuff. I love to create physical things and see a tangible outcome from what I've built or what I've designed or what I've done. And you just don't get that in, well, at least where I was working and the way I was working, you just don't get that. So yeah, it was about a year ago that I came back from that on site, and I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I move forward with this? Because it's the same stuff every 6 months, every quarter. It's like we regurgitate the same goals, the same values, the same blockers. Everything is just the same. It's repeated quarter after quarter. I can't do it anymore. So on a whim, I just was looking up, you know, Reddit, and I was like, well, what do I do? Where do I go? And I seen a few posts from people going, is 37, is 38 too old to go for an apprenticeship? And a lot of people were like, no, do it, do it, do it, do it. And me being impulsive, like I'm really, really impulsive, I was like, you know what? I'm in. I'll do it. Whatever. I don't mind anymore. So yeah, I ran with it. I applied for one single job that I saw. I was like, worst thing that can happen is they say no. Went for the interview. Seemed to go well. I seemed largely overqualified from a working perspective, but not from an electrical perspective, obviously. And then a week later, I don't even think it was a week. I think it was 2 days later or 3 days later, they called. They were like, look, we don't want to keep you on hold any longer. We want you to come on board, everything like that. Yeah, then by the start of March, I was getting ready to leave tech and go into an electrical apprenticeship at the start of April. So it was all quite fast. I had been thinking about it for years. Like it wasn't something that was very far from my mind, but I think if I looked back in 5 years, 10 years, and thought, oh, I should have done it 5 years ago, I should have done it 10 years ago, I would have regretted it. So I just bit the bullet, didn't really think about it, didn't really think about the financial side of it, didn't really think about the commute, going back to being like physically in a location to do my work every day of the week and what that would look like. Again, the impulsivity just took control and I was like, no, I'm going for it. And largely due to support from my partner, Jenny, obviously, I just went for it and I haven't really thought about it since, like in a negative way. Yeah, I think that's kind of largely where the decision making came from.
Impulsive in the decision, like to actually pull the trigger on it, but I guess you were thinking about it for a while. It was something brewing. You knew you weren't happy about the going into work every day, even though were you doing like working remotely too, like so you're doing some hybrid office kind of
Yeah,
typical.
it was like a 50% thing, like 50% of the month you would be in office. Even at the time, you could sense, you could get the feeling that that wasn't going to last. Like everyone was going to be back in office, you know, by the end of 25, 26, 27. Definitely within the next year or two, I think most companies will go back to that fully office based working environment. There's too much money in real estate and physical locations to not do it. So I think that aspect of it didn't really hold me back, I suppose, in thinking, oh, 3 days in, 2 days off, whatever, or 2 days out, not off, but 2 days out, where it wasn't really kind of forming part of my thought process, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
And I love that you use Reddit. I'm on Reddit all the time, and yeah, you
Yeah.
see posts like that. So like, where do you use Irish subreddit, or what subreddit were you looking at, or career change, or
No, I don't know what it was. Like I can't remember. I could probably find and search up the post. It was actually Jenny who sent it to me in the first place. She was like, "Hey, look at this. here's people who have made big career changes later in life and they've not regretted it. I'm like, ah, it's the internet. Like, how can you really tell? But through reading a lot of those posts, a lot of it really struck home, and it was specifically related to people leaving the tech industry and transitioning into a trade, whether it's electrical or carpentry or plumbing or whatever it may be. And it seemed to be, at least, that there was very few people, if any, that had regrets at all. I don't remember there being anything that I looked at on Reddit where it was like, oh, hey, like, I really regret this decision. Everyone was largely in favor of it, you know? I think it was more US based. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it was largely just people saying, I'm leaving tech or I've left tech and now I'm doing this, like, apprenticeship or whatever it may be.
How did you pick what direction? How did you pick electrical, or did you consider other things, or would you always know you wanted to kind of?
I considered two things, and it was electrical and carpentry. They were the two things that I really have a huge passion for. And I think the electrical side came largely and stemmed largely from me doing work on my own house, which I shouldn't have done in retrospect. Um,
Yeah.
I look at all the work that I've done. Like, we moved into our home 4 years ago now. And when we moved in, there was certain issues and certain things that had to be fixed. And to be honest, I could have afforded it at the time. I was on like a great salary. I could have afforded to got a lot of this stuff fixed professionally. But I wanted to pull my sleeves up and get stuck in and do a lot of it myself. And I started learning and I started picking up things straight to YouTube, like, how do you do this? How do you change a socket? How do you change a light bulb? How do you change a light fitting? All that kind of stuff. And that just led me further and further down that path. When I thought about it, when I considered what I was going to do when I was leaving, obviously carpentry was there as well, but I did have to consider my age, right? I was 38 at the time, 39 now, and I physically don't think I could take the carpentry side of things. It's a lot more heavy lifting than I would have assumed electrical would be. Now, that being said, there is a lot of heavy lifting in electrical as well, surprisingly so. A lot to do, especially that I work in an industrial setting at the moment. And there's a lot of heavy lifting in terms of containment, so things that are used to hold the electrical systems up are very heavy. So, but I had to consider those things. I had to consider my age, what was going to be long term, the field that was going to be most, I suppose, forgiving on my body, because it will fail eventually. It's just more about when. That being said, and kind of on a tangent, I've had back problems for years. I slipped a disc in my back when I was 22, working in retail, lifting a bag of magazines, and I've always had recurring problems with that. Since I've started working in this, I'm a lot more conscious about not hurting my back, so I lift properly where I never would have before. I'm probably a lot physically stronger now than I have been in the last 5 to maybe 10 years, because I'm not as sedentary
Yeah. So there, yeah.
as I used to be. My neck's not as sore, my back's not as sore, all of these things, like, surprisingly so. I'm on my feet all day and I'm lifting heavy materials, but I'm less, like, immobilized than I used to be, which is a strange kind of dichotomy almost.
Yeah, because you're not sitting on a desk every day. Like, yeah, use it or lose it. Yeah. Um,
Exactly.
that's really cool. And okay, so we talked about kind of the finding the job. You just basically applied for the first one, and they replied to you like, "Yeah, cool, we'll take you on board as an apprenticeship." Really? Okay.
Yeah. It was one of those weird, really weird things. I went on, I think it's apprenticeship.ie or something. It's a main Irish resource for apprenticeships and apprentices. And I was going through, I was scanning through, and this was mid-January. And I think the cutoff date for applications was like the 20th or something. And it was maybe the 15th or 16th. So I just ChatGPT banged together a super quick CV, emailed it off to them. I was like, hey, listen, give me more information about this. Like, what's the story generally? And they just emailed me back, like, I mean, an hour later. I'm like, I would love to have you in for an interview next week, and went in for the interview. And then, as I said, 2 days later, it was an offer, really. But yeah, it was a really, like, I didn't look at anything else. I didn't really consider anything else. And again, it was just one of those impulsive things where I happened to be scanning through and I seen this post and I was like, oh, I might as well jump on it, because most apprenticeships, I think a lot of them don't start really till the summer and September and stuff like that. So that one, I kind of just jumped on a whim. And it was more so, oh, if this doesn't work out, like, I've got the next 6 months to kind of look at other places and contact electricians and go through that process. So it was very much just like a one and done kind of situation with me, which seems to be
That's cool.
for the most part, what happened.
Brilliant. But how did you go about like structuring a CV, right? Because your CV probably didn't have anything that, well, I mean, you've been working in IT up to that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was super vague and super open. Like in terms of my CV, I really just put down my last kind of 5, 6 jobs and just core soft skills. Like I'm not going into that going, well, I led, this process improvement or this production rollout or whatever. Like I'm not going into those details. I'm really just focusing on those soft skills and what I can bring to a role like that. Like whether it's communication skills, leadership skills, soft skills like that are just completely transferable, right? It's the stuff that will get you basically into any job. Those hard skills that you need for any job are generally learned on the job versus actually going into it with a full breadth of knowledge. I think it helped that I did a bit of work on the house where I could kind of relate a bit of that in terms of time management and timekeeping and how long projects take to fulfill and stuff like that. But nothing specific. Like it was super vague, like super open. But yeah, again, I just chat GPT the thing. I just popped it in really quick, did a few tweaks and sent it off. It was maybe a 5 or 10 minute job. Very little thought went into it, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I mean, ChatGPT is great at formulating that kind of stuff, right? Telling you, okay, well, you
Yeah.
should focus on these points. What was the interview like? Did they ask you like, why do you want to do this? Why are you here? Or is it common for them to get
Yeah.
people that are transitioning into different jobs?
I didn't think it was particularly common, particularly from the industry I was going from to. It's not very common. But that being said, when I was in the interview, a lot of what I wanted to know was how they deal with people who are 35 plus looking to get into this industry. And are there many? The company I'm working for now currently has good few people who are late 30s, early 40s as apprentices. There's a guy I work on site at the moment. He's a third year apprentice and he's 42, but his background is largely in construction. And there's a lot of people who more so have a background in construction that want to get into a field that will kind of make them more money, and it's a skilled job, and it'll allow them to um, go into the latter half of their lives or their careers a little bit more comfortable than just running around site laboring and picking up stuff and cleaning stuff and everything like that. So largely the older guys tend to come from construction. So from my perspective, it didn't seem, at least the company I'm working for, didn't seem to be a normal thing by any stretch. The interview process was straightforward. I can't say it's not. You know, for the most part, they're interviewing young men, young women who are early 20s, late 20s at a push, really people with no experience. And again, a lot of what they're looking for in that interview process is soft skills and how you're going to manage working with other people and under tight deadlines and how you're going to communicate with people and all the things really that I focused on in the CV, and all the things that I've got a breadth of expertise in, like having managed people, led people, and done interviews for the last 5, 6, 7 years almost consistently. So it was a very, very basic, straightforward interview. I think largely what they wanted to know from me was like, does this person actually want to work like in this role, or is it like more of just a shiny thing that they're looking at and they don't really grasp the concept of what we do?
Yeah, yeah. They're probably like, okay, is this someone that's gonna stick around after they do the initial training, or are they gonna break?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you went in for the interview, nailed it. They sent you a job offer. Then you had to tell your job that you're quitting, right? What
Yeah.
was that process like?
Do you know what? That was a weird process for me. Like towards the end of January, and before I had gotten any of this, up towards the end of January, as I said, I came back from that on-site feeling really demotivated and really discouraged. It took a huge toll on my mental health, and it has done over the past few years. I've had some really pretty big issues with my mental health over the last few years. Most notably in 2022 when I like nearly completely lost the plot and ended up having to get like serious help for it. So at that point, towards the end of January, I was starting to feel like I was spiraling again, and I was going down that path where I really didn't see a positive outcome for myself. So I actually took some time off work, and I was off work when this whole thing started kind of gathering steam, and I just decided never to go back. I emailed them and I just said, listen, this is the story. Like my mental health is really suffering by working in this industry. So I've decided to leave for the betterment of myself more so than anything else. And that was it really. It was like, okay, cool, bye. And here's your last month's pay or whatever. It was very like it was a very clean cut. Like there was nothing. I think largely my own manager at the time, and as well as HR and all that, like they knew I wasn't happy, so it wasn't a very big surprise that I was going to leave at some point. Like I probably mentally checked out a long time before that, so it had gotten to the point where I just kind of was winding down with the work that I was doing, and it was a very clean cut, to be honest, for me at least. Anyway, it was like, right, see you later, and they were like, yeah, bye, all right, cool.
Because when you leave a job, like everybody's like,
Yeah, yeah. How much of a salary bump is he getting? Like, what's the new perks? I'm like, I can tell you what kind of salary bump I'm getting, and you're not gonna like it.
exactly, like a down bump.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, like respect. I'm sure a lot of people respected it too that you made that transition, especially if your mental health was involved. Like I know in working in the IT industry myself, yeah, the quarters start blending into each other then too. Like right, you start seeing it like that. All right, and then how quickly after sending that email did you start? What was your first maybe? I remember you were doing the blog posts about it, which I'll ask you a little bit about after. But tell me a little bit about that first week, maybe.
So I already knew I was going, and it was like, it was about a month before I started that I was going to be going out. So that notice period, I think I cut it short a little bit as well, just to like for this be a clean break. But I started on the last week of March last year. And the first week, the way my company does it now is that they have a kind of induction week where they have a training facility in Glasnevin in North Dublin, and they do a week where they kind of get you familiar with some of the ways that you're going to work, and also getting you kind of up to speed on some of the trainings that you need. So you need certain training for like going up on ladders or using grinders or angle grinders or things like that. So you do need specific trainings and specific permits to do that. So that was like the first week. My first week on site was a bit jarring, but ultimately, like, I think it was a very easy transition. Like I don't remember there being any kind of major difficulties with getting up to speed with what was going on. The thing about the site that I was working on, or that I'm still working on now, actually, the thing about that site is it's massive, and there's so many people that no one really cares to know at what level or stage you're at, right? It's like you walk in, and the assumption is they'll look at you and they'll go, "You're probably an apprentice, or you're qualified, or you're a labourer, or whatever it may be." And it was just really, really straightforward. I don't remember there being any difficulties. I think because of my age, because of the way I look, obviously, maybe the way I carry myself, maybe the way I speak to other people around me. No one, even to this day, no one still believes that I'm a first year apprentice. Like everyone just assumes that I'm a qualified spark. So it's actually quite funny. Most of the time. Yeah.
Were you nervous starting? Like were you was like I mean or not?
No, not really. Like I felt like there was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders in a really weird way. Like I went into it going, I don't have to know anything. I'm not going into this job having to know a single thing about anything. I don't have to hit the ground running as a, quasi project manager or whatever it may be, an operations manager. I don't have to do anything other than absorb information. Like that's all I have to do. And it was very freeing. Like that kind of aspect of it, I could just walk in. Someone asked me to do something, I could just be like, "Don't know, show me." And it was like, things like that were just really, even to this day, it's really just nice to have that feeling of learning from the ground up, rather than having to, learn how, particular company does a particular thing. Some ways that you don't believe in or trust, or some ways that you think you can do better, and they say, "No, we tried that 3 years ago and it doesn't work." And okay, that's me shot down. Like things like that, and trying to generate ideas in tech was very difficult for me, or I found it very difficult at least. So that kind of aspect of going in, having zero expectations on me, was unbelievably freeing. And yeah, I couldn't have been less nervous if I tried, to be honest. I was very chill about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean I think if you just accepted like look, I'm new here, I'm here to learn and bring you that energy, then I'm sure people accepted that around you too, like right? And that you didn't come in saying, yeah, you're just kind of teach me. I'm here to learn.
Yeah, yeah. But the odd
Yeah.
time you'll get people like going, "Oh, can you do this or do that?" And I'm like, "I have no idea how to do that." And they're like, "What do you mean you have no idea?" I'm like, "I'm a first year. I've never done it before." Like,
They're like, stop lying to me. You're not a first
shut
year.
it. Stop lying. You're a liar. You're an old man.
What skills do you think were transferable from your last from the IT world into this job? Like we talked about communication a little bit, and anything else like management or any other?
Yeah, I think communication is big one. I think it gets lost, especially on younger lads, is that they can't communicate effectively, and it often holds them back. They're things that I try and kind of talk to some of the other lads about, and try and help them along. Like, for what it's worth to a lot of people, I do still try to help and coach people where I can, and a lot of it is surrounding those soft skills, those communication skills and stuff like that. Leadership, definitely. I think I've brought one of those. I've brought that energy in where I can lead by example. If I know how to do something, I will take charge of it. Like, there's times where I've had to fix or work on stuff alongside qualified electricians and alongside third and fourth year apprentices, and I'm almost kind of getting them to the end goal rather than the other way around. And that's largely those leadership skills and those kind of motivational skills that I would have built up over the years. And then yeah, just work ethic. I think, I've always had a good work ethic when I'm interested in something. When I'm uninterested in something, it's harder for me to manage. It's obviously a function of how my brain works, but yeah, when I'm motivated by something, I'm just, I'm all in. That's kind of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. And how was the day structure? I mean, in the IT world, like we have stand-ups and quarterly meetings and stuff that we talked about. What's it
Yeah.
like on a construction site?
It's very similar. It's funny. Like, a lot of the tech world, like, norms that you think of, whether it's stand-ups, whether it's quarterly meetings, where it's, whatever these things are, like, a lot of that comes from the construction industry. Like, a lot of project management methodologies were developed in, or at least refined in the construction world, and have been there for a long time before tech came along. So you do still have your morning stand-ups, your daily stand-ups, you have your weekly toolbox talks in relation to safety or anything else going on. So there's a lot of similarities there in relation to how things operate and how projects run specifically, and order of operations and all those kind of things. So it is quite similar. It's different atmospherically. It's a different, you're not sitting in front of a computer, you're not sitting in a room with people, you're standing in a group and chatting about it, and you're on site and everything like that. But it's quite similar. Like, I think a lot of jobs are quite similar in that way.
Will you have you show up on site? What time does your on site day start? 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock,
7. Yeah, I'll
7.
be
Okay.
down on site for 7 o'clock in the morning, and usually it's just a quick debrief in the morning of what has to happen that day. If there's anything urgent that needs to happen before we get back to the jobs that we were doing, or if we don't have work, then we're finding work. Um, yeah, 7 straight through to 3:30, and then it's done for the day. Obviously breaks in between, but that's the day.
Do you have a worksheet for the week? Like, okay, this week we need to finish this, or the goal is to finish this room, or
Generally speaking, yeah, that will come down from the supervisors, from project managers, everything like that. What needs to be done for that week, what needs to be done for the next 2 weeks, month, and how we're going to progress onto that. But as I suppose the site that I'm working on at the moment has been there's been a lot of changes, and there's a lot of things that have been, while they've been in progress, have had to be changed due to design errors or whatever it is. I don't know. I can't speak to the specifics of it, but uh, there's been a lot of kind of pulling us from one place to another, left and right, to fix this urgent thing or do this thing urgently because this needs to happen or that needs to happen, or the painters need to get in, or the plasterers need to get, or the plumbers need to get, or all that kind of stuff. There's been a little bit of probably mismanagement on that side of things. So there has been a bit, but largely it's yeah, this is your week, this is your day, this is the tasks you want to complete for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and this is the deadline we have for whatever whatever we need to finish, really.
okay. And can you give me an example of a task that you had to do that was maybe challenging, or something that you went to do? Like, this is all new to you, right? So you kind
Yeah,
of approach it with a new mindset. But maybe it's just a concrete task that you had to work on, and where do you even start with that process? Because for me, if I was starting this now, I'm like, okay, where do I? Maybe because I haven't worked on my own house like you have, so you have that
yeah.
experience. But it's like just wiring a room and being the one responsible for like the power going into a specific room seems pretty intimidating.
Yeah, like, look, at the end of the day, I'm a first year apprentice, so I'll always be. The process is I should always be with a qualified spark. I should always be working alongside them. So whatever they need to complete their tasks or their job, I will support it. That, whether it's cutting metal for containment for what we keep the wiring in, or whether it's helping getting materials and all that kind of stuff. That would be largely what I should be doing. Now, there's been times from very early on, because of the nature and the speed that this job has been working on, I've been thrown in the deep end quite a lot to do some of the more complex tasks that I probably shouldn't be doing as a first year apprentice, or at least, you know, you wouldn't normally do. Like, I think probably the first thing that I was put on my own was wiring the proximity sensors for an entire building, basically. So all the little sensors that make the lights go on, basically, I had to wire and install all of them for 4 floors. And that was pretty straightforward. I think because I get things, and like as you said, I've done work on the house, but I also have that mindset where I kind of have that construction mindset already. Like in my brain, it already works that way where I know this has to happen first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is. And I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm sent on a task and it's like, okay, I'll get my phone out and I'll ring whoever I need to ring if I've got a stumbling block, or I'll clarify 3, 4 times before I start the work rather than trying to guess what they want. So that was one of the bigger ones that I worked on, like completely solo. And that was interesting. Like obviously, it was interesting. I got to wire the whole thing. I got to install the fittings, the fixtures. I got to terminate all of them. And I did make a mistake while I was doing it, which I didn't realize until maybe 2 months later. That I was like, oh, I made a mistake there. And all I did was told someone about it, and they're like, cool, let's fix it. Like rather than like them finding out that there was a mistake made, I was the one to put my hands up. So I think that's another part of mistakes happen, and mistakes are normal. You just have to be on top of them and make sure that they are highlighted, really.
I guess if there's someone checking the work after it, then it also relieves a bit of the pressure, right? Like because you do something, someone a supervisor says, "Yeah, that looks good." They
Yeah.
probably feel great that they can just delegate stuff to you and you can get it done. And cool. So, is there anything that surprised you about the job when you started? Like maybe like you're you're into it about a year now, or just under a year?
It's just under a year. It'll be coming up to a year in at the end of March will be the year mark. In terms of surprising me, not really. It's strange. Like there's things that are shocking, but they didn't really surprise me. Like it makes sense. Like the cultural difference between working in tech and working on a building site is like it's night and day. It's like shocking.
Like you
But it's
guys
not.
don't have Slack? How are you guys talking to each other? You
How do,
call?
what you text each other? You actually you take out your phone and ring somebody. Just a cultural shock of like, uh, it's going to happen when you've got 95, 96% men on site versus more of a 50-50 split in tech, and just how things operate generally, and how people communicate with each other is very different. Like it's no holds barred, but it's also kind of it's not malicious. I think if you think about construction workers generally speaking, or if you think about building sites and generally groups of men being together, you tend to think that it's going to be very, very toxic. There are points where it is, obviously, where you kind of have to step back and go, you know what, it's not great. Like, really, you should like temper the way you speak and everything like that, which has happened a few times. But again, I think given my experience, I can be confident in saying to other lads it's not okay to speak like that about whatever they speak about, and it tends to stop like immediately. But yeah, generally, like nothing really surprised me because I kind of felt like I knew what I was getting myself into in a way. But it's not without its shocks sometimes, especially in winter, like when it's cold and everyone's miserable and everyone's feeling a little bit rotten. It gets a little bit worse.
I can
It is what
imagine,
it
yeah.
is.
And is there okay, you've been there like less than a year, but what's the vibe overall? Is there more women going into this field too, or is it still mostly male dominated as it is, or is there a change happening?
It's male dominated for sure. One thing I suppose I do like about the company that I work for is they make very large strides, and they have actively try and recruit women. I think in the last 4 groups of apprentices they've taken in, there's been at least one, if not two, women taken on board as apprentices, and that's been great to see, and it's great to see that kind of almost energy on site. It tempers everything down a little bit, and I think it's necessary. There are a good few women on site, just not to the level you would kind of expect or want right now. I think it's going to grow. I don't think it's ever going to be 50-50. It's just it is it is a different type of work, and I think there will be a much larger shift towards it, but I don't think it's ever going to be 50-50. Doesn't feel like it will be anyway.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
you
I
don't know.
mean, you see more renovation videos online and stuff, and there's women like buying properties and renovating the whole thing. So maybe that gets more women into that field. Like, right, I want to learn how to plug a whole house and
Yeah,
fix a roof. Like, it's cool. So maybe I wanted to finish on these points too, like about the property that you bought and the process around that, and maybe I guess that was your first big project at least. Like, right, what was that like when you bought the property? You didn't really know much about plumbing or electrician or being a carpenter, or did you?
I think it's an ongoing process. Like I'm still not nearly finished. Like there's still a lot going on. I did going into it. Like I could always fix things. Like I've never shied away from it. Like I think I get that from my dad largely. Like he's always like I've grown up with him like fixing and building and doing things like that. And he doesn't have a background in construction either. Like he was in HR for years and stuff like that, and operations management a little bit as well. So, but I grew up with that, and I suppose not having a fear of trying things. I was always afraid of electricity though. Like that was the one thing that I was like, I'm not touching ever. Like I'm not going to do it. Then I moved into the house, and I started tipping away. I started doing bits, filling holes and doing a bit of plumbing because I'm like, it's water. It's not going to kill me. It's just going to make a mess, right? So, I plumbed up our new fridge and I did other things. I did a bit to the kitchen. And then I was like, oh, you know what? Like I could change a plug socket here or there. Like it's not the end of the world. Just make sure all of the power is off and everything like that. Yeah, really I just focused on watching YouTube videos. Like, oh, what's the best way to do it? Like how can I fix this and not kill myself? And yeah, YouTube. Like every night I'd be sitting there watching YouTube for 2-3 hours on specific things. I'd be like, okay, I want to plumb this fridge in. How do I do it? Sit there, watch it. What do I need to buy? Going out buying tools, getting tools in order to do all these things, getting the materials, doing all that. And yeah, it was just trial and error. Like I felt more confident doing it at my own house because if I break something, like it's mine. Like great, I don't really care if I break it. Like if I put a hole in the wall, who gives a shit? Like Jenny's not going to kill me over it, or well, she might kill me over it, but like, you know, it's not the end of the world if I put a hole in the wall, or it's not at the end of the world if I flood the place a little bit. Like you can always get it fixed, and it's not a big deal. So that kind of freedom allowed me to learn a bit more and get a bit more hands on in the house, but yeah, as I said, like in my past, my background generally, like I'd always just be fixing and building and everything like that. Like I'm very much like a hands-on person. I want to figure things out, build it, create it, design it, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's kind of what led to it. Like I think the having the house and having the freedom to make mistakes, I think was the biggest thing. I think that goes for my job as well. It's like as long as you have the freedom to make mistakes and you're not going to get chastised for it, you're not going to get murdered for it. Basically, you feel a lot more comfortable to try things and to do things. And that's been super freeing as well. I don't think you get that in the tech industry. I don't think you have room to make mistakes, albeit like you'll have like let's fail fast and fail often or whatever people say. No one is out to fail. Everyone's out to cover their own backs. Everyone wants to have the really nice polished proposal that can be pushed forward and there's no issues, and no one wants to fail anything, and then you know I think that's one of, if not the biggest issues, is that um mistakes aren't given I suppose the love that they deserve. Really, I think mistakes are how everybody learns, right? And it's
Mhm.
definitely how I've learned. And the freedom to make mistakes in my own house has just set me off on a path where I feel a lot more comfortable. If I make mistakes, I can either fix it or I can communicate with the person that needs to know how to fix it. And yeah, that's more or less it.
And what are some of the? I mean, you mentioned at the start that you made some mistakes in the wiring in the house where you are now. Like, or what are some of the early lessons or things that maybe you have more experience now that you say, I would have approached that a little bit differently.
I think probably I think largely what I would have done differently, and I probably would have been a lot safer in how I was doing things, and I would have tightened things a little bit more. I think that's the two things I'm a little bit more conscious of now. So when you're working on electricity, to make sure you turn off, obviously you want to turn off the circuits that you're working on, But just because a circuit is off doesn't mean that the actual outlet or the electricity is not live or it's dead, because there could be a problem with the wiring somewhere. I was just turning breakers off, and I'd have something plugged in. I'm like, oh, that's turned off now, so it must be dead. It's not necessarily true, right? You should always test for dead when you work on something to make sure that it's dead using a multimeter or something. So that's one of the things is kind of around safety. And then tightening things down. Like, I didn't realize how much you have to tighten a screw in a terminal with the wire, right? You have to, when you think you've tightened it enough, you got to tighten it even more because you don't want that thing moving. You don't want it pulling out. And I've seen it in situations where I went around, a friend of mine owns a cafe around the corner, and she asked me to come in to just check something because there was a bit of a loose connection on a plug socket. And when I took it off, the connection was loose. There wasn't a screw in something. And I looked at it, and my immediate thought was, shit, that could have caused a fire, right? I wouldn't have thought that before, because now I know the dangers of electricity in like a really like heightened way. It's strange where you have this level of, I'm afraid of electricity. Then I learn a bit on YouTube and I'm not afraid of it anymore. Cool. Like,
Yeah.
and then I go into a professional space and I start learning about electricity, and I start seeing firsthand what can go wrong and what has gone wrong. And then I get really scared of electricity. So I'm in that kind of mode right now where I'm terrified of electricity. But the things that I'm putting in place, like in order to get over that, are those methodologies or those mindsets where, like, right, test for dead. Do not trust that a circuit is not live ever. If you see a copper cable sitting there and it's not plugged into something, if you want to touch it, test it first, then touch it, and you're fine. I think it's funny. It's a really funny way to look at it, is that I got really comfortable with electricity while working on the house. And then now I'm really scared of it again. But like, I'm much more competent now than I was then, even after a year.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess a bit of knowledge makes you comfortable, and then that's a bit dangerous then
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah,
like, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get this really you get complacent in a way, like, and that complacency kills, right? It's one of the first things they say to you, like when you start this, or when you're learning, is that complacency does kill, right? Because it just takes a small shock to electrocute you. Especially when I'm working in industrial now, where we only work dead. We'd never work on live circuits, but it does mean that we do have to turn things off. We have to make sure it's off, and everything like that. We have to put locks on the circuits to make sure no one accidentally turns it on, because there's so many people around. Those locks only have one key. There's no duplicates for those keys, so only you can open that lock. Those kind of safety measures that you have to put in place are a lot higher than I would have ever really thought.
That's interesting. So then that means like no one can accidentally assume it's not being used and come and unlock it, and then cool, cool. And was what you've seen now that makes you more respectful of electricity? Was it all from your onboarding week? Did it show you a lot of content about like when thing goes wrong, here's what could happen, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's that plus now my algorithm on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube just shows me electrical videos, because I'm constantly wanting to learn more. I want to take more into the job, and I really want to excel at this as a career. So I'm constantly looking at those things. So I do get fed quite a lot of information online, and a lot of stuff online about, the dangers of electricity and what can go wrong. But yeah, partner that with obviously the induction week, the trainings that you have like throughout the process, like you're always in training, fire safety training, or doing this training or that training. And those toolbox talks that I talked about once a week will like highlight the dangers of these things, and never to assume anything. Like, for example, like I suppose just tangentially, we had a toolbox talk recently about boiling hot pipes, right? Because we work up at height with electricity, and we have the cables going through, but right behind us we might have 140 degree Celsius water running through pipes behind us, because we're in a brewery basically. So you have boiling water in pipes, and you lean your head back, you could burn the skin off your head, right? That kind of way. So you
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
be really conscious of these things. So those kind of toolbox talks will highlight the dangers of these things weekly. This area is now live, that area is now live, whatever it may be.
And I think that's a good point to wrap up on tools. I see the display behind you. Have you gotten it? I know you always like tools and buying things too. Have you started buying more
Jesus.
stuff now?
I I'm really bad for buying tools. Like I always have been, even before I started this, and that's one thing I will say. Like I came into this with quite a good selection of my own tools beforehand. I suppose I was still living off my tech money at the start of last year, April, May, June. So as I was going through those first few months, I was seeing people with tools where I was like, I want that, I want one of them, I want one of them. And I'm probably the most overstocked first year apprentice that's ever existed at this point, to be honest. Like, most of my tools are really high end tools that like even some sparks don't have. You know, it's become a running joke with some of the charge hands and some of my supervisors that I'm better equipped than a lot of electricians for like any job that I need to do. And that just comes down to partly that I had quite a lot of it beforehand. Obviously, partly because I've got very low impulse control and I really want new things. And I get excited by tools that'll make my life a little bit easier and things that'll make things go a little bit quicker.
And did you have an example of one that you bought that you're like, can tell me a little bit about?
I think the one that I haven't bought it yet, but I probably will buy it, and it's completely unnecessary. And I've been told it's unnecessary by everyone I've talked to about it. It's a crimping tool. It's for crimping lugs and ferrules, like little connectors on the end of wire to connect them to certain things. And this particular crimping tool is has got a magazine on it, so you can change the kind of crimps that it does. So instead of having 4 or 5 tools, it's one single tool with a changeable head on it. And that thing's like €280. Like it's completely unnecessary. Like it's not something any normal person should need or should want to buy. But of course, like I want to buy it. So I'm like, oh, I really want that. And then everyone's been telling me not to buy it. I don't need it, which makes me want it even more. Right. So it's like one of
But
those
it's cool.
unnecessary things, but it's cool. Like it's really cool.
And is crimping like attaching two wires together? Is that what crimping is?
Yeah, it can be. Crimping is like a crimp is like something you would attach to the end of an exposed piece of wire to either connect it to another wire or connect it to something. And so you might have a crimp that has a lug end on it that looks like it's like a hole that you can screw something into it. So or it might be a bootlace ferrule, which basically takes a load of strands of cable and crimps it down into one single like piece, so it makes it easier to put into a termination.
Yeah. I think if you put together a proposal about how much time you can send on the construction side, save on the construction side using this tool, and see if you can expense the tool, then buy it. You know, use your IT days.
Absolutely not. Like I've been down that route. But one of the big things is like they'll supply you with PPE, right? So you'll get supplied with your hard hat, your gloves, your glasses, your high vis vest, and your boots, right? It's 5 points of PPE. That's all supplied. But all of the tools you have to supply and buy yourself. So there's a certain amount of depreciation in your own tools, right? And that really irks me and bugs me, is that like I'm using my tools on this job, but I'm not being expensed for that, right? So I do have a little bit of a thought about how that works, but I'm not going to change the industry by doing that. It's like generally you're only on jobs for a small amount of time. Your company's not going to pay for your tools generally. There are tools on site that you might need, like power tools they have that you can take out for the day and stuff like that, and you can use. But for basic hand tools, it's
You'd
your own
expect
tools
you
that
to
you use.
have like, yeah, yeah.
The one thing I will say about having my own tools and having good tools is I'm less likely to give them to other people. You see a lot of people like, oh, can I borrow, you know, that spanner off you? Can I borrow a screwdriver off you? Can I do this? I generally say no, and people get a bit up their backs about it a little bit. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose a €70 tool because someone's forgot to give it back to me, or they've dropped it and broke it, or whatever it may be. So I'm a lot more precious about my tools than maybe you would be otherwise. But
Yeah.
I think that also helps. And when you buy good quality tools, like these are things that are going to last me all the way through my apprenticeship. Like they're not things that I'm going to replace in 6 months to a year. They're not things that I'm going to forget about and I'm going to put them down on the floor and walk away from. They're things that I'm going to have and I'm going to protect, and I'm going to, keep them for hopefully a very, very long time. And some particular tools you'd use and you'd keep for a lifetime, really. And that's the way I always look at it, is like buy good quality, and you won't end up in a hole with a broken tool and you can't get a job done.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at investing in quality. That's for sure. Vinny, this has been really fascinating. I learned a lot talking to you. Thanks so much. Are you still doing the posts? I know you were doing like weekly posts at one point.
I'm gonna bring back one every now and again. I was doing them weekly, but I lost a bit of steam on it. Again, it was my motivation more than anything else. I was like, you know what, like, am I getting the value out of this that I really want? And the whole thing, like, the reason I was posting those was I really just wanted to reflect on how I was doing and what I was doing. I'll also put it out there for anyone who who wanted to know about it, because I think there are a lot of people who would like to make similar transitions. Maybe it's not to be an electrician or a carpenter into a trade. It might be, someone wants to open a cafe, or someone like is really super interested in, in art and design, and they want to, make a career out of that versus working in a job that they don't believe in or trust. So a large part of it was that. And yeah, I just lost steam on it. I did enjoy it, getting my thoughts down, but it started becoming, I suppose there was diminishing returns for myself. In the first 8 weeks, I was doing quite a lot that was new, and it was nice to reflect on those things. But after that point, I'm kind of settled into a rhythm. And am I providing value by putting this out there for other people, or am I providing value for myself and reflecting on these things? Or is it more beneficial for me just to spend time working on the skills that I need to improve to become a better electrician? And then every so often I might put something out. I am working on one at the moment, or I was working on one, and I might put it out in the next couple of weeks. But it's not something that I wanted to overextend myself with. I know Jen wanted me to record my experience and do something with video online. I wanted to do it as well, but I again, I didn't see where that could go or what I really wanted to get from it. I didn't know, so I just kind of paused on that as well. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, if you do anything, I'll link it in this episode too, for so I'll share that because
Yeah.
I enjoyed the posts that you made. They're really cool.
I enjoyed doing them. I did enjoy doing them, but again, it's just more about what value am I bringing here, and what is it that I'm trying to say, and I lost steam on it a bit. So I think less frequently but more impactful would probably be the ones that I'll put out, if at all.
Could be cool.
Yeah,
Vinny, thanks so much, man.
no problem, man. Anytime.